G'day everyone, today we're going to learn all about the Navy in Hearts of Iron 4. The good thing is that for beginners, you can either put in minimum effort or get really detailed and build a fancy surface fleet. Both ways work, one's more fun than the other, and I'm going to teach you each of them. But firstly, if you enjoyed this guide, please consider dropping an like and subscribe. It really helps me out in bringing these videos to you. Also, as always, we have a bonus tip at the end, so stick around for that. Sun Tzu once said, "In Hearts of Iron 4, forego all other naval doctrine than the bathtub subspam." And that is the easier of the two methods we'll go through today. If you aren't really interested in learning about the complexities of the Navy just yet, or the rest of the game is still trying to make sense in your brain, the next few minutes are for you. Before we get started, it's important to understand how the naval system works. Your Navy is made up of all your individual ships. You can split up your Navy into smaller fleets, and then those again into task forces. And each fleet is led by an admiral. You use your fleets by assigning them naval missions in the different sea regions. When your fleet meets an enemy fleet, they begin a naval battle. Each naval region has a certain percentage of superiority in it, depending on the strength of each fleet. That's pretty much the basics that you need to know. Of course, it's more complex than that, but as a new player, you don't have to get too deep into it. So, the subspam method. It's amazing for single player, it's low effort, effective, and pretty set and forget in terms of you don't have to monitor it that much. What I'm referring to is building a lot of cheap level 1 subs, which are called bathtubs in the community. The idea is that they're hard for the AI to detect. They have a relatively low production cost compared to destroyers and other surface fleet vessels, and they have a long range and a decent amount of attack. Their main weakness is enemy naval bombers, but luckily the AI is too stupid to use them properly. So, as you can see here in the naval research tree, you usually start off with the basic level of submarines. If your nation doesn't have this, then that is the only tech that you need to research to build these bad boys. Now, let's show you how to build this glorious bathtub fleet. Okay, so go into your production tab, scroll all the way down to the bottom where your naval production queues are. These battleships and the other surface fleet are going to be useless, so you can delete them by clicking this rubbish bin here and hitting enter. We'll get rid of all of those. Then what we're going to do is open up the naval production menu, and you can see all the different equipment you have to produce. So here's a pro tip for you. If you click on this green button, it will dismiss all of those ship types, decommission them, so you don't have a bunch of useless options here. Now, we have 11 dockyards, as you can see here, and each ship's production line can have a maximum of 10 dockyards working on it, with the exception of your carriers and battleships. Add one line for your submarines, and add 5 factories on it, or 5 dockyards. Then what you want to do is add another line for your convoys, and add your remaining factories. Please don't forget to build convoys. Now, because these are so cheap, if you get a few production lines working on these subs, you can pump out quite a respectable navy in a relatively short period of time. So to maximize their production, make sure this is something that you set up at the start of your game. If you really want to not have to worry about your production, add an extra line or 2 of subs and assign the maximum amount of dockyards, and as you capture or build new dockyards, they'll automatically be assigned to those queues. If you press F2, you'll open up your naval view. My preferred way to reorganize all these fleets you see on the top right here is to left click and hold shift, selecting all of these anchors, which represents a different fleet. So select all of those and then right click on the bottom of the theatre panel here, next to the blue circle. That's disbanding all of your fleets and assigning them to the reserve fleet. Then if you click on this button here, you're selecting all your different, like these are now task forces, the individual task forces. And then over on the top left, click on merge. So now if we let our game run for a minute here, you'll see all of your boats coming together, and now they are combined. So what we want to do now is separate our submarines from our surface fleet. So if you have a look on the fleet panel on the left hand side here, or rather the task force panel, if you sort of scroll through down this menu of all your individual ships, you can select the submarines, and as you scroll through you can see the different ship types, their experience, their class, all that information. So if you double left click and hold shift, just keep double left clicking on the different submarines until you selected them all. Right click on this space down here, and now you've separated all of your submarines from your surface fleet. Now what we want to do is select that group here in the theater panel, which is all of our submarines. Click this plus down the bottom middle of our screen to assign them to their own fleet. I know it's a lot of stuffing around, but trust me, this is the easiest way to manage your navy. So now we can assign them an admiral, any one will do, that's fine. You do so the same way you would assign a general. Now each fleet can have a maximum of 10 task forces within it, and each task force will cover one naval region. So to get max coverage for our subs, we're going to split them up in a way, but also so that they automatically reinforce from your new submarines that are being built. So what you're going to do is select this task force icon at the bottom row here. It's not the fleet one, it's the task force one right here. Now if we go up in the top left below our admiral portrait, you'll see this option here. So split the selected task force in half. I want you to do that until you've got 10 different task forces. You'll probably need to select a couple and split them as well. Now you can see at the bottom of your screen, this admiral is commanding 10 out of 10 active task forces. Once you've done this, I want you to go to one of your task force lines, and sort of to the right of that, you'll see this button here for the Task Force Composition Editor. So this is how we're going to make sure our fleets automatically reinforce. So at the moment it contains submarines. Think of this as like creating a template for your Navy task forces. So what we're going to do is give this a number here. Between 10 and 30 is a pretty good number. We'll just go with 15. Give it a name, this template. And then click on this save button here. So what that's done is created a template for our task force, and click OK, and then you can see here it's applied that template to this task force. Now I want you to go through for each one, and instead of creating a brand new template, you can click on the one you've created here from the drop down arrow and click OK. So just go through and do that for all your task forces. So now you've done that, what's going to happen is when a new submarine is built, it'll automatically join a task force that is under strength until that reaches its maximum amount of 15. So the last thing you need to do to make your submarines pretty much autopilot is below your admiral portrait again, this option here, automatic split off. So what that means is when one of your boats gets damaged, it will return to port to repair individually rather than the entire task force of 15 subs going with it. Now, to actually use your fleet, you click on the admiral portrait on the bottom, and then you need to right click on the sea regions you want it to operate in. So I am just going to select all of these ones as they border all of my Italian territory, which will make it harder for the enemy to naval invade me. Now, if you have a look at the mission bar near the bottom of your screen, you will see a few different missions that you can assign your task forces. So for your submarines, you want to click on the convoy rating. So if we unpause now, all of our submarines will go to those areas. These regions have lit up green, so this means that you've got the majority of naval supremacy in those regions. You need over 50% naval supremacy in a region to launch a naval invasion. So this is how you can stop the AI from invading your ports and your coastlines. And that, believe it or not, is the easy, low-effort way of operating your navy in Hoi 4. Your subs will vibe, doing their own thing, and launching torpedoes at anyone within periscope distance. The next method of running your navy is to go all out and build a surface fleet with battleships and cruisers and aircraft carriers. I won't go super deep into this, as if you're enjoying the naval system enough to get into it, you should really consider buying the Man the Guns DLC, which fully overhauls the naval system. I'll have another video on that in the future, but for now I'll go over the basics. With a surface fleet strategy, you'll be investing into building more dockyards, researching better naval techs, and having a good combination of the two ship classes, which are capital ships and screens. So the goal of your capital ships is to sink enemy vessels in naval combat. So capital ships are made up of your carriers, battleships, battle cruisers, and heavy cruisers. On the other hand, you have your screens. So they are there to protect your capital ships, and they are made up of your light cruisers and destroyers. It's worth noting that your surface fleet have two main attack stats, light attack and heavy attack, which target your screens and capital ships respectively. Thus, you need to make sure you have a balance of both to make sure your fleet is useful against different ship types. On top of that, you need to make sure your capital ships are protected from enemy torpedoes, so you should keep at least a 4:1 screen to capital ship ratio in your navy. Delving into the different ship types, they can be outfitted for a variety of different roles, with your destroyers here being quite useful at anti-submarine warfare when upgraded with those extra stats. In the base game, they're also really good at spotting enemy fleets, so it can be worth having a few destroyers on the patrol mission, with your main fleet on strike force mission. So what this means is when operated in the same sea region, your main fleet will only leave port to engage the enemy when your destroyers find them with their spotting mission, drastically cutting down on your fuel usage. Although a surface fleet is fun and a great way to gain naval supremacy, they are expensive and they take a long time to build. Therefore, it's a great idea to make sure you've got some fighters active in the sea regions where they're operating, wherever possible, to reduce their chance of being naval bombed. One of the best uses for your fleet is in supporting your troops in a naval invasion. So to set one up, you want to select an army group and make sure they've got no orders issued to them. Next, you want to select this button here, the Naval Invasion Order, and then you want to left click on the allied port from which you want to launch, and then right click at the enemy tile where you are wanting to attack. It's worth noting that if you don't take an enemy province with a port, your troops will have no supply when they land, so make securing a port your main goal. The next thing to do is to select your navy, and then you want to right click on the sea region where your naval invasion is going to travel through. If it's multiple sea regions, you'll need to right click on all of those that this line here is going to go through. Next, you want to select this button here, the Naval Invasion Support. So this will provide naval supremacy as well as a shore bombardment bonus from your ships when your troops are attacking the province. When you're ready to attack, click the green arrow above your army, and as long as your invasion is prepared and you have naval supremacy, your troops will launch. A side note here, you'll also need convoys to transport your troops and their supplies. Marines also get you a bonus to naval invasions, whereas your normal troops will take a penalty. Once your troops land and you start attacking other provinces, your ships will keep providing shore bombardment support as long as the combat takes place in a coastal province. For battles on small islands or on the coastlines, this can be a good way of getting a bonus to your division's attack. Again, it's important to keep an eye on your fuel stockpiles when you're using your big navy. If you run out, your ships will be far less effective. If you need a quick fuel boost, come into your trade tab, find a country with a lot of oil, and trade a bunch of factories with them. Now, hilariously, my naval invasion failed because I suck, but one thing to keep in mind is as you secure new land and push away from the port that we're going to pretend that we captured right here, you do run the risk of being naval invaded in return, which would cut off your supply. So to prevent this, you can keep some smaller divisions for port defense. So you can assign this order by selecting the army, going to this order here, the area defense one, and deselect all of the options apart from naval bases. Then what you want to do is select the states where you want them to defend ports, and those troops will automatically make their way to defending all of those ports, making it harder for the enemy to naval invade you. Okay, that's the basics of what you need to know about the Navy in Hoi 4. Now it's time for the bonus tip. So when setting up your naval invasions, the more units are assigned to that naval invasion, the longer it will take to prepare. So you can actually prepare naval invasions quicker by only assigning 2 or 3 divisions to an order, and it will prepare much quicker. There is no penalty to setting up multiple naval invasions from the same port to the same province, so go ahead and use this to your heart's content. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it helpful and entertaining, and if you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing to see when I post new videos. I also stream on Twitch, my link is in the description, so please stop by and say g'day, and I'll see you in the next one.